Hey, good morning. Hasn't this series been helpful? I feel like whenever we take time and look at some things in our life and look at the boundaries in our lives and create, new lines, new margin, or go back and circle some areas and look and discover for some gray areas that we had in our life that we didn't even know were gray areas. And so I just want to say thanks to both Mark and Antonio. Boy, they did a fantastic job. And today, I want to finish this series up by looking at a big line that it's a line that we like to manipulate. It's a line that we like to justify. It's a line we like to make excuses for. It's a line we like to complain about. It's a line we like to judge others about. We create funky justifications for this all the time. We try to feel okay about stuff we do with this line, even though it's not okay. This is just a peculiar line, and it's stuff that we'll even say stuff about this line that's not true in an attempt to make it true. So we'll say stuff like, well, I had to have it. I had to get it. I couldn't pass up that deal. The sale was too great. Everyone else has it and I needed it, right? Mine is old. I need an upgrade. Probably not true. But here's the thing. This is a line that even if we can come up with the most flimsy of words of justification, we'll take it so that we can use it and that we can get it. Now, usually our manipulation and usually our justification is built on some measure of truth. It's probably just not the whole truth because we overweight that truth so that we can ultimately get what we want to get. Because here's the reality of it. You wanted to go and eat out. Right? You did. You wanted to go eat out. You wanted to buy it. You just needed an excuse to buy it. You wanted to go on that trip. You just needed a reason for it. You come up with any kind of rationality you can so that not only can you justify it to yourself, but you can justify it to others. And so this is the line we want to kind of focus on and look at today because it's a gray line for most people. And that's a problem because in this line, it presents itself as a need. But in actuality, it's greed. But it doesn't look like greed at first glance. So how do we establish lines against greed? And so this is what we're going to do. And so what I want to do is I want to offer us 3 words. It's going to be three simple words. You may not have put them in this order before, but these are the things that I want to do. And we're going to use 3 words, and we're going to use the word give, we're going to use the word save, and we're going to use the word live. And we're going to process this because here's what I've often wondered. I wonder what I would have, I wonder what I would buy if I didn't know what you had. Does that make sense? I don't know if I would buy the things that I would buy if I didn't know what you have, because the problem is I saw what you have and went, oh, that's cool, or I need that. If I didn't know what everybody else had, I probably wouldn't want what everybody else had. And I wonder how much more money I would have saved. I wonder how much more money I would have given away if I didn't know all the other things that I didn't know I needed until I saw somebody else have it and then decided that's what I wanted. And I wonder how much more I would have given away to people who were less fortunate. I think my problem is, and I'm not going to speak for you, I'm just going to speak for myself. I think my problem is I know too much. I know too much about what you have. I know too much about what I don't have. And this knowledge creates discontentment. And it lures me right towards the edge of finances. And this is why some of you are in financial bondage or maybe even financial ruin, because this discontentment has an appetite that is never fully or finally satisfied. And without clear lines before, it's like anything else. In the moment, it seemed like a good idea. And without clear lines, we're going to cross those lines because lines are a system. We've been looking at these for the last 3 weeks. We're going to continue today. Lines are a system, whether it's our car, right? They're a system to keep you from going into a dangerous area, off-limits area, no cliff. Yesterday, I was here and I was trying to get back home, and I couldn't get back home because we've tear up every curb in the county for let's repave everything. All at the same time, but let's not finish any section. Let's start a whole bunch of sections everywhere. And so we're in the midst of that. So there's cones, we're like Cone County. Welcome to Cone County, Illinois. And yesterday I couldn't even get in my neighborhood because there were cones that were prohibiting me from get there. Now, here's what I found out about cones, and I've only learned this in the last month because I've seen cones everywhere. Cones are not placed in the danger zone. They're outside of the danger zone. They put cones in the safety zone to keep you from going into the danger zone. And I think this is the exact thing why God begins to try to give us lines. God does not put lines in the danger zone. He puts lines for us in the safety zone as a way to minimize damage in your life. Minimize disrepair, because what it does is it sets a standard of behavior that becomes a matter of your conscience. And so what we want to try to do, and what we've been trying to do in this series, is to have a little portion of your brain and a little portion of your heart that lights up. It's like your conscience gets dings and goes, oh, I'm getting close. I'm getting close to a line, I'm getting close to something, and I don't want to hurt myself and I don't want to hurt others. And what we want to do is we want to have that light up and go ding, ding, ding. You're right, getting close from safety to danger. And there's a line there, and you're getting ready to make a choice. Am I going to pay attention to the cone and the line, or am I going to try to excuse my way into what I want and what I think is right, even though I know those lines were set up for my protection? Now, many of the challenges that people struggle with are related to ultimately two things: sex and money, okay? Those are the two things that are most disregarded in the New Testament. When we talk about teachings of Jesus, those are the two things that are most disregarded: sex and money. Culture says this about the lines that church has put up, about the New Testament lines, about both of them. I've heard this many times, that the church is against sex. And I've also heard that the church just wants my money. Let me clear this up real quick, won't take long. Okay, let me address this. God created sex, okay? And he doesn't need your money. Okay? Good talk. So, by financial lines, I'm not talking about getting out of bankruptcy. I'm not talking about your credit card debt, although that would probably be worthwhile to go here. By financial lines, what I mean by here is that you can be completely out of debt, you can have money in the bank, and you may have driven off the edge financially. And Jesus explained it best, and this is where I want to go. I'm going to go to Matthew chapter 6, because I think he does such a great job of explaining this. And he explains it, and you're going to respond to it the same way that Jesus' crowd responded to this, and I think it's going to be great, right? Matthew chapter 6, verse 24. He says, Jesus is talking to a crowd. He says, no one can serve two masters. And everyone's looking at each other going, shrugging, going, two masters? I don't even have one master. I mean, Jesus, this doesn't make sense. But here's the thing Jesus does so well. He baits us into what he wants to teach us. So he says this: okay, no one can have you. Either you will hate one and love the other, or you'll be devoted to one and despise the other. And you're like, well, now I'm thoroughly confused, Jesus. I mean, that's what his message, those who listen, I don't understand any of this. I'm going to hate one of my masters. I don't even have a master. Now I'm going to hate one and despise one. That makes no sense. And then he says, verse 24, still going, no one can serve two masters. And by masters, he means possessions, ownership. He says, no one can serve two masters. You cannot serve both God and money. And this is a fundamental problem that Jesus' followers have. Do we have money, or does money have us? And the reason that Jesus followers, now if you're not a Jesus follower, you can take what you want on this and do what you want to do. But if you are a Jesus follower, this is a part of the not optional portion of the New Testament. Because there has to be financial lines because Jesus is letting us know that the chief competitor for your heart, when it comes to God, the chief competitor for your heart is going to be money. Who will master your heart? The chief competitor to God, you're like, oh, it's got to be sin. Jesus goes, I understand how that'd probably be a good answer for the test, but it's money. And he goes, but God doesn't want something from you. He wants something for you. And this is why we have a line. So let me kind of explain this line to you. I want to give you a graphic, okay? We have two options when it comes to possessions. Some of you are spenders and some of you are hoarders, okay? Don't nudge anybody, okay? It's just not appropriate right now. Save it till you get in the car, all right? That'd be great. Everybody just smile and act like, oh, it's probably other people in the room. It's not us, okay? That's what we want to do. You're either going to veer off the cliff of consumption on the right, or you're going to smash into the wall of hoarding on the left. And both of these things are both done by desire. One of them is they're both driven by massive fear, right? They both have the same root, which is, I have a desire, so I'm going to consume, and that's a fear. The other one is a fear that you're going to run out of stuff, so you hoard. They're both driven by fear. And greed is the assumption that everything I have is for my consumption and it's for me. And so we fall into two habits. We fall into overspending, living as if there's no God until there's trouble, and then what do we do? Then what do we do when we overspend and then we get into trouble? Then we suddenly do what? We pray to God about our problems. And we're like, God, I need help because I couldn't control myself because I had lines, and I said, oh, that doesn't matter because I really want this. And so you chose the wrong master is what Jesus said. So if you're mastered by money, this is how you live, and this is how most people live. You live first, meaning you pay your bills, you eat, you pay your mortgage, you go to the store, and you don't even know if you can afford it or not because now you just swipe something. Well, it's a debit card. You swipe something, right? Whatever. You swipe something, then you check later to be like, did I have it or not have it or whatever. And then the other thing is if you have any money left over after you've been living, if you have any money left over, then you'll save some. And then if after you've saved some money, if you have any money left over after that, then you'll give some. But if you live in this order, very rarely are you going to save, and very rarely are you going to give and be generous because you're mastered by money and you're always going to think that you don't have enough of it. So, Jesus inverts this on us, and he flips this around, and he says, here's what happens if you invert this and do the other because you can't serve both God and money. And he says this, if you want to master your money rather than have money given from you, you need to live this way. You need to give first, save second, and then live off the rest. Now, this has been around for a long time, not new information. I know Dave Ramsey, he's got financial peace, I'll tell you that much, for selling these ideas. He's doing great. Before that, it was Crown Financial Ministries. It was great. Before that, it was parents that had the envelope system. So I had a friend named Wendell, and he was telling me about his dad. He grew up in southern Florida, and his dad gave him and his brother envelopes, and on one of them, he wrote, give. The next envelope, he wrote, save, and the next envelope, he wrote, live. Now, back in that era, you were paid your allowance in coins. That's why you needed an envelope. So you could put your coins in it, and you would get coins in a particular way that you could put it in your envelope, and you had to give, you had to save, and you had to live. Now, I grew up a little bit later, and so I would get an allowance, and because of inflation, it moved up, and so inflation, I got dollars, so I would get $5 for my allowance. And they was usually given to me in singles. Why? So I could put one for give, one for save, and then I could do whatever I wanted to do with the rest. Now we found ourselves in a culture that if I were to say, I'm not going to do this because, COVID killed the offering bucket, but if we were to pass it around, we're like, hey, everybody, let's all just give sacrificially today, and let's put whatever you have in your wallet in there. And we might raise $30, right? So now we have a situation where we don't see the money necessarily, unless you have an app or something like that, but you don't see it, so we don't think in terms of that. And so growing up, we went on these things, but financial independence, you can't have God as your bailout program for your finances. Meaning, I don't have any money, so dear God, help me get some more money. I'm so in trouble, right? Because Jesus is saying, look, you don't have a dollar problem, you have a heart problem, because money will always compete for first place in your life. It will always, and it's very persuasive, and it has so much it wants to tell you. Now, here's what I want for you. I don't want money to win in your life. I don't want you to be a slave to consumer debt. I want you to own your stuff. I don't want you to be owned by your stuff. And this is how you do it. You first give, then you save, and then you live. This is what Matthew wrote down that Jesus said. He says, no one can serve two masters. No one can serve two masters. Either you will hate the one, you're either going to hate God, and you're going to love the other, or you're going to be devoted to God, and you'll despise the other, because no one can serve both God and money. Because when we fear, we hoard. We hoard because we go, I may need that someday. How many of you got shoes and clothes and junk and stuff in the garage or a shed or a basement or that one drawer in the kitchen that when people go, is your silverware in here? You're like, oh, don't go in there, right? You got a cabinet. What's in there? It's I may need it someday. Which day? Someday. And what's that about? That's driven by fear. And so when we have fear, we hoard. We hold stuff close into our hearts, and we can't let go of anything because we may need it. This is not my words. I just want to be clear, so don't send me an email. If you want to send Jesus an email, I don't know how you do that, but you should. Because this is what Jesus says. That's what the pagans do. That's how pagans live. For the pagans run after these things. They don't believe in a personal God. Pagans don't believe in a personal God. The ancient gods that were around there, they didn't care what you bought. They didn't care what you purchased your money on. And then it gets worse. Jesus just keeps going, verse 32. Your heavenly Father knows that you need them. So wait. You mean to tell me my heavenly Father knows that I need a place to live and knows I need to eat? Do you believe that? Christians, do you believe that? Do you think God knows what you need? Do you think God cares? Because if you do, then this changes everything. Verse 33, but instead of worrying, instead of hoarding, instead of consuming, seek first, reprioritize, rearrange, reorder His kingdom and His righteousness. It's a different way of thinking, Jesus says, because now it's others first, me, my kingdom second. And what's right for others is right. Mark chapter 10, verse 42 says it this way. You know that those who are regarded as rulers of the Gentiles, they lord over it, and their high officials exercise authority over them. That's not supposed to be this way with you. Not so with you. Instead, whoever among you wants to be great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be a slave of all. For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve and to give his life as a ransom of many. That's generosity. So back to Matthew, verse 6:33. He says, but seek first his kingdom. Reprioritize is not you live first. It's you live third. Seek first his kingdom and his righteousness, and then if you reprioritize your life, and if you give first, and if you save second, and if you live off what's left over, all of these things will be given to you as well. Put God first as a devotion to God. Put his kingdom priorities first, and then, this is a promise, then he'll take care of you. Put God first, then he'll take care of you. This is why I tithe off the top. Tithe is an old word. It's 10%. This is why we tithe first off the top. This is why I ask you to be a priority. This is why percentage givers, they just live differently than anybody else. Percentage givers, they take a percentage off the top before they even look at their bills and expenses, and they give it away. Usually that crowd also takes that same percentage and puts that in savings. Then they take the rest and they make life choices about. And that is how you guard against greed. You give first a percentage, you save a percentage, and you live off the rest. So, first thing, pick a percentage and give it to your local church. I mean, if it's not here, and if you're visiting or something, it's your local church. Trust that God's making a difference in people's lives there, and get invested in it, not just with your dollars, but with your life and your community. After you've given there, then give to community nonprofits that you're passionate about, reflect your concerns, all those kinds of things. Give a percentage. Tithing means 10%. Some of you right now go, oh my gosh, you don't understand, Paul. I already have 0%. No, I have negative 5% margins in my life. This is irrational. Okay, give a percentage. Give a percentage. Here's what you're going to do. The moment you try to give a percentage away, greed is going to tell you that's the dumbest thing you can do. It's going to be very persuasive and very passionate. Then take that same percentage, so if it's another 10%, save. Now, whether you want to invest it, whether you want to put it in a Roth IRA, whether you want to put it in a 529 college fund, whether you want to do, prepare for your future. Now, living like this, I don't know, it's in the future. We'll figure that out later. That's not a plan. Save, invest, put it away for another day. Then the third part, this is where you get to have fun. This is the hardest thing to get to know. Then consume, live on the rest. Well, that's only 80% of what I have. Or for some of you, some people give 15%, save 15%. Some people give 5%, save 5%, and then so they have 90, whatever it is. Then you live off the rest. But you don't have to worry about your stuff owning you, because you've already taken control of that. And you said, no. Money's not my master. God, you're my master. And I know you know my needs, and I know you know my concerns, and I know you already know those things. But if you don't live that way, the way that Jesus talked about giving first, saving second, and then live off the rest, you will think you always have money problems. You're always going to be short on money. You will constantly blame your lack of money on your expenses, and you will blame it on your income, and that will create conflict at home, and it will create conflict at work and conflict with your boss. It will create bitterness with your boss, and you will always be jealous of what other people have and what other people get to do. It's just reality. And so if you're constantly upset with what you have versus what others have, and you think you have a money problem, you don't have a money problem. You have a priorities problem. And maybe today this is a wake-up call for a way to live differently. This is an opportunity to live according to the values of Jesus, to draw new lines in your life. Generations, this isn't new, this isn't a fad, this isn't like, oh, wow, helpful tips with Paul. No. Not my idea. Generations have found this way of living tremendously helpful. Generations have also said, this doesn't make any sense. How can you do this? This is backwards. How can this work? How will I be free if I give first, then save, and then live off the rest? I can't live off of what I have now. I know. And I understand the pushback. And I also think the earlier and younger you are to learn this, the easier it will be, because if not, you will always think you have an income problem. And you won't, but you'll think you do. Because if we were to interview people right now in their 50s and 60s, and we said, hey, did you think you would make this much money when you were in your 50s and 60s? They would say no. And they would say, I never thought I'd make this much money. And then I would say, well, do you feel like you have enough? And those who live first will say no. Those who give and save first say, man, you can't even imagine how blessed we are. We're just, oh my goodness. It's incredible. Now, if this seems totally irrational and irresponsible, welcome to the Jesus lifestyle. There's a lot of teachings of Jesus that seem irrational. I'm going to go through a couple. Ready? These don't make sense either. Patience, right? That doesn't make sense. Romans talks about that. We live in a world that's obsessed with real-time data, fast-developing news, viral moments, constant development. Being patient is countercultural. Being patient is an act of trusting God, accepting that there are certain things that are beyond my control. Here's another one. Meekness. That doesn't make any sense either. Meek inheriting the earth. That's illogical. We live in a noisy culture that rewards those who are the loudest, those who can protest the most, those who are the most noticeable, those who have the best rants, the best arguments, who can yell, who have splashy, disruptive whatevers for the norm. And secularism is how we market our society right now. But meekness is not a form of weakness. It's actually a unique source of strength. It's fascinating because those people aren't susceptible to hate, mainstream rage, reckless, hyperbole, irrational fear. They're not susceptible to those things. Foolish injustice, ignorant propaganda. Those people aren't susceptible to racist rhetoric or systemic injustice. Meek people don't suffer from that. They're gentle and quiet in the midst of a frenzied culture. Humility. This doesn't make any sense. I mean, technology and social media posts have made it where we can edit and post things that are perfect. We can put the perfect quote, the perfect picture, the perfect filter, the perfect experience, and we're constantly told to be proud and unapologetic about your beliefs and your behaviors and post all that. Be egotistical, be arrogant, all these kinds of things about your political views, your theological positions, your religious traditions. Rarely are we taught to be respectful and listen. That's humility. Hope, that doesn't make any sense either. Because after relationships have failed us, after communities have hurt us, after institutions have betrayed us, organizations have manipulated us, governments have disappointed us, religion maybe has even damaged some of you, it's easy to be cynical and pessimistic about pretty much everything. But hope is an attitude inspired by Jesus. It's a sense of meaning and purpose and optimism towards life. That doesn't make sense. Faith, we see Jesus culture as countercultural. Faith, for the people that have fully embraced it, if you have tried it, it's more than just, living and experiencing, believing this. But these people actually live richer and fuller lives when they just don't hear the words of Jesus, they live by them. These people experience what hope is. And it's sad. It's sad watching some people live without hope or without humility, without faith. Last night, Emerson, our youngest, had just had a great softball game, and that merited a trip to PJ's Ice Cream at Mantino's, which is, they got to believe in generosity, because, man, they give you like this much, and you're like, I'll take a kitty scoop, and you're like, it's hard. And so we go up to pay for our order, and they said, no charge. And I was like, no, I'm pretty sure we did charge. We've accumulated a bill. And they go, no charge. And I go, what do you mean there's no charge? And they said, well, there's someone in the room that is paying for everyone's tonight. Who? Well, they want to remain anonymous. Yeah, I get that. Who? So they pointed to a gentleman in the back. He had a hat on. And the guy's just standing there all by himself, just smiling from ear to ear, just smiling. And I go, I have no idea who the guy is. I said, you're paying for, like, there's a huge line. He goes, yeah. So I go back and talk to him. I go, how can we help him? He goes, he does this a couple times a week. He'll just come in and pay for anybody that's in order. And he's just smiling. And I thought about that. He understands the contentment of life. He understands that I give first. He obviously has saved. And he's living off the rest. And so, if you love Jesus, but if you don't embrace the life and teachings of Jesus, your life will actually not look like Jesus. It'll look like everyone else who struggles. But if you embrace the teachings of Jesus and make room, reprioritize, make some new lines that are Jesus-based, if you would step out and give first, pick a percentage, give it. Pick that same percentage, save it, and then live off the rest. It's going to be a struggle for some of you, because you right now your money owns you. Your possessions own you. But I promise you this, future you, no matter what your age is, future you will thank you today. It's going to look back, and they're going to thank 2023 you and say, oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Future you will be so glad you did. That you gave, that you saved, and you lived off the rest. And that is the last line we're going to deal with, at least for this series, that can transform your life. Can I pray with you, and then we'll respond? Father, today, I need, I want, I should, I got, there's expenses, there's this that's broke, this needs to be fixed, that needs, and oh, I got to have something to wear, and oh, we need this. And God, would you help us push back from that? Because that's not how you designed us to live. You designed us to be kingdom first. For some of us, we've never dreamed or thought of a financial plan for the local church. God, you made it clear. Help us become percentage givers and give it away for your kingdom. Help us to save so that future us isn't panic us. And then let us know that you have already supplied our needs. Now, we may not get all of our wants. In fact, we probably won't get many of our wants. But our needs will be supplied. And that kingdom math and kingdom finances always works out because you know our needs. And you free us. You free us from greed and comparison. And don't you think we should? And didn't you see what they? You free us. So God, we pray in this moment that you would make room in our hearts, make room in our lives, because it's not going to come without a fight. It's not going to come without a struggle. And something's going to be disappointed. But we want to be free. We don't want to serve two masters. We want to serve you. We love you. Amen. This morning as we close, if you want to respond by taking the Lord's Supper, communion's available. Take it back to your seat and take it there by yourself or with your family. If you want to light a candle and say, man, I got some dark financial places or whatever, and you need hope in any area of your life, or if you have a prayer request and you want the staff to join you in prayer about that this week, pin it to the cross as the band sings. But let's do some work this week about drawing some new lines.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us today online. If you enjoyed the content you saw today, we really think you might like being here in person with us at Gathering Point. And we have environments on Sunday for your elementary students, your preschoolers, and our nursery is open as well. So you can get all the information about joining us here in person at our website, gatheringpoint.church. We can't wait to see you soon.